Little girl fixes millionaire's Mustang. The ring on her finger leaves him speechless. Welcome to Love Scene Diaries, where every story is a window into the unexpected moments that change lives forever. Today's story, little girl fixes millionaire's Mustang. The ring on her finger leaves him speechless, begins on a quiet country road. Just as the sun dips behind the trees, Mr. Carter, a man whose wealth and reputation precede him, speeds through the winding lanes in his gleaming Mustang. His mind is fixed on the high-stakes meeting ahead, his phone buzzing with reminders, his thoughts tangled with numbers and deadlines. The world outside his window is a blur. Until, with a sudden jolt, everything stops. The Mustang shudders, then dies, leaving Mr. Carter stranded in the middle of nowhere. He curses under his breath, checking his phone for a signal. Nothing. The silence is thick, broken only by the ticking of the cooling engine and the distant call of a bird. He steps out, frustration mounting, and pops the hood, hoping for a miracle. That's when he senses he's not alone. From the tall grass at the roadside, a pair of curious eyes watches him. A small, barefoot girl, no older than 6, stands quietly at the edge of the road. Her dress is faded, her hair wild from the wind, but her gaze is steady and unafraid. She takes a cautious step forward, her presence both unexpected and strangely comforting. Mr. Carter, used to solving problems with money and influence, suddenly finds himself at the mercy of fate and the mysterious little girl who has just entered his world. Mr. Carter glanced at the girl, his polished shoes sinking slightly into the gravel as he tried to mask his irritation. He was a man who thrived on order. His days scheduled to the minute, his suits tailored to perfection, his life a series of calculated moves. Even now, stranded and out of his element, he exuded an air of authority. His cufflinks gleamed in the fading light, and his phone, useless in this dead zone, remained clutched in his hand like a lifeline. The girl, in stark contrast, seemed untouched by the urgency that clung to Mr. Carter. She moved with a quiet confidence, her bare feet barely making a sound as she approached. Her dress, though faded and patched, was clean and carefully mended. A wild tangle of hair framed her face, and her eyes sparkled with curiosity rather than fear. Around her finger, she wore a ring far too large for her, a delicate, old-fashioned piece that caught the last rays of sunlight. She stopped a few steps away, tilting her head as she studied the car and the man beside it. There was a wisdom in her gaze that belied her age, a sense that she'd seen more of life than most children ever would. Yet her smile was bright and unguarded, as if she saw the world not for its troubles, but for its possibilities. Mr. Carter, used to being the one in control, found himself momentarily disarmed by the girl's presence. For the first time in a long while, he realized he might need help, and it was coming from the most unlikely source. Hope took another step closer, her eyes flicking from Mr. Carter's tense face to the open hood of the Mustang. She spoke softly, but with a certainty that caught him off guard. "Do you need help, sir?" she asked, her voice clear in the quiet evening. Mr. Carter arched an eyebrow, a hint of disbelief in his tone. "I don't think this is a job for a little girl," he replied, glancing back at the engine as if it might magically fix itself. Hope didn't flinch. Instead, she set her small canvas pouch on the ground and knelt beside the car. "My daddy used to fix cars like this," she said, her fingers tracing the Mustang's fender with a gentle familiarity. "He taught me a few things before he went away." Mr. Carter hesitated, watching as she unzipped the pouch to reveal a handful of well-worn tools. Screwdrivers, a wrench, a roll of electrical tape. Each piece was carefully wrapped in cloth, clearly cherished. The sight of them, so out of place in her tiny hands, made him pause. "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" he asked, skepticism softening just a little. Hope nodded, her expression earnest. "I've helped Mama fix our old truck lots of times. Sometimes cars just need someone to listen to them." She looked up at him, her eyes shining with quiet confidence. "May I try?" For a moment, Mr. Carter considered refusing. but something in Hope's steady gaze made him step aside, curiosity and desperation mingling in his chest. He watched as she rolled up her sleeves, ready to face the challenge with a determination that seemed far too big for her small frame. Hope stood on tiptoe, peering into the maze of metal and wires beneath the Mustang's hood. "Can you pop this for me?" she asked, pointing to the latch. Mr. Carter obliged, still unconvinced, but now more curious than dismissive. She leaned in, her small hands moving with surprising assurance. She checked the battery cables, gently wiggled a few connections, and paused to listen to the faint ticking of the engine cooling. Her brow furrowed in concentration as she traced a wire along the side, her fingers nimble and precise. Mr. Carter crossed his arms, watching with a mix of impatience and growing intrigue. He'd expected her to fumble, but instead she worked with the quiet focus of someone who'd done this before. She reached into her pouch, pulled out a roll of tape, and then, after a moment's thought, slipped a hairpin from her tangled hair. With a few deft movements, she secured a loose wire, wrapping it carefully and tucking it back into place. As she worked, Mr. Carter's gaze drifted to her hands. That's when he noticed the ring, a delicate, old-fashioned band, far too large for her tiny finger. It glinted in the fading light, its intricate design at odds with her simple dress and dirt-smudged skin. The sight of it made him pause, a question forming in his mind. Hope finished her repair, stepping back with a satisfied nod. "Try it now," she said, wiping her hands on her dress. Mr. Carter hesitated, then slid into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine sputtered, coughed, and then roared to life. He looked at Hope, astonished. For the first time since his car had broken down, he smiled, genuine and unguarded, and as he glanced again at the ring on her finger, he realized there was much more to this little girl than met the eye. As the Mustang's engine settled into a steady purr, Mr. Carter stepped out, still marveling at the unlikely mechanic before him. His gaze lingered on the ring, its delicate pattern catching the last rays of sunlight. Curiosity finally got the better of him. "That's a beautiful ring," he said gently, nodding toward her hand. "It looks special. Where did you get it?" Hope glanced down, her fingers instinctively curling around the band. For a moment, her bright confidence faded, replaced by a quiet vulnerability. "It was my mama's," she replied softly. "She gave it to me before she went to heaven. I wear it every day so I don't forget her." The words hung in the air, simple and honest. Mr. Carter felt something shift inside him, a crack in the armor he wore so tightly. He saw in that instant not just a clever child, but a little girl carrying a world of loss and love on her small shoulders. Hope looked up, her eyes steady. "Mama said as long as I have this ring, she's always close, even when things are hard." Mr. Carter's usual briskness melted away. He knelt beside her, humbled by her strength. The ring was more than a piece of jewelry. It was a lifeline, a memory, a promise, and the girl who wore it was far more remarkable than he could have imagined. With the Mustang idling quietly, Mr. Carter found himself in no rush to leave. He leaned against the car, glancing at Hope, who sat cross-legged on the grass, her pouch of tools beside her. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers and the distant hum of crickets. "Do you help everyone who gets stuck out here?" he asked, a hint of a smile in his voice. Hope shrugged, her eyes bright. "If I see someone who needs help, I try. Mama says we don't have much, but we can always give kindness." She picked at a blade of grass, her voice softening. "Mama works a lot, at the diner and sometimes cleaning houses. I help her when I can. It's just us now, since Daddy's gone." Mr. Carter listened, the weight of her words settling over him. He realized how little he knew of struggle, how insulated his world had become. "That's a lot for someone your age," he said quietly. Hope nodded, but her smile didn't fade. "I want to be a mechanic, like Daddy. Fix things for people who can't afford it, maybe even have my own shop one day." She looked up at him, hope shining in her eyes. "Mama says dreams are free, even if everything else costs money." For a moment, Mr. Carter was silent. The loneliness he'd carried for years, the empty house, The endless meetings, the hollow victories, felt sharper now. "You know," he said, his voice softer than before, "I used to dream too. But somewhere along the way I started chasing things that didn't really matter. I forgot what it was like to help just because I could." Hope studied him, her gaze gentle. "It's never too late to remember." The words struck him, simple and true. In the fading light, with the Mustang humming and the world quiet around them, Mr. Carter realized this unexpected meeting was more than a coincidence. It was a reminder, one he desperately needed. The Mustang's engine rumbled steadily, a testament to Hope's quick thinking and steady hands. Mr. Carter stared at the dashboard, almost in disbelief, then turned to the little girl who had made it possible. Gratitude welled up inside him, stronger than he'd felt in years. He reached into his wallet, pulling out a crisp bill. "You've saved me a lot of trouble today, Hope. Please, take this. Buy yourself something nice." Hope shook her head, her small hand gently pushing his away. "Thank you, but I don't need money. I just wanted to help. That's what Mom and Daddy always taught me." Her words, so simple and sincere, left Mr. Carter speechless. He realized that for Hope, kindness wasn't a transaction. It was a way of life. The gesture humbled him, making his usual world of deals and rewards seem suddenly small. "At least let me give you a ride home," he insisted, determined to do something in return. "I'd like to thank your family in person." Hope hesitated, then nodded, trusting him. She climbed into the passenger seat, her feet barely reaching the floor. As Mr. Carter drove, he glanced at her, marveling at the way she gazed out the window, content and unburdened by the day's events. For the first time, he felt the stirrings of something unfamiliar. Hope, perhaps, or the beginning of change. The Mustang rolled to a stop in front of a small, weathered house at the edge of town. The yard was dotted with wildflowers and a battered tricycle, and the porch light glowed softly in the dusk. Hope hopped out, waving for Mr. Carter to follow. Inside, the home was modest but inviting. The scent of something warm and comforting drifted from the kitchen, and family photos lined the walls, some faded, some new, all filled with smiles. Hope's mother, a woman with tired eyes and gentle hands, greeted them at the door. She wore a waitress uniform and an apron dusted with flour, her hair pulled back in a loose bun. Hope introduced Mr. Carter, explaining how he'd needed help with his car. Her mother's gratitude was immediate, but her pride was clear too. "Hope's always looking out for others," she said, smoothing her daughter's hair. "She's got her father's heart." As they sat at the kitchen table, Mr. Carter listened to their story. He learned about the long hours Hope's mother worked, the stack of medical bills on the counter, and the worry that sometimes crept into her voice when she thought Hope wasn't listening. He saw the overdue rent notice tucked beneath a magnet on the fridge, and the worn textbooks Hope used to teach herself after school. Yet, despite the hardships, the house was filled with laughter and love. Hope spoke eagerly about her dream of becoming a mechanic, her eyes shining as she described the car she wanted to fix and the people she hoped to help. Her mother smiled, pride and worry mingling in her gaze. Mr. Carter felt a deep ache in his chest, a mix of admiration and sorrow. He realized that, for all his wealth, he had never known a home quite like this, one where love was the greatest treasure, and hope was never in short supply. As the evening deepened, Mr. Carter sat quietly at the kitchen table, the weight of Hope's family's struggles pressing on his heart. He glanced at Hope, who was showing him her father's old wrench, the metal worn smooth by years of use. Her mother's voice, soft but steady, spoke of bills and worries, but also of dreams and determination. Mr. Carter knew he couldn't walk away unchanged. The next morning, he made a series of calls. By noon, Hope's mother had a job offer at his company, steady hours, fair pay, and benefits that would ease her burdens. He contacted the landlord and settled the overdue rent, ensuring the family could stay in their home without fear. Quietly, he arranged for the medical bills to be paid in full, removing the shadow that had hung over their days. But it was for Hope that he reserved his most heartfelt gesture. A week later, he returned to their home, carrying a sturdy toolbox engraved with her name. Inside were real, high-quality tools, each one chosen with care, each one a promise that her dreams mattered. Alongside the toolbox was a letter, a scholarship fund in Hope's name, guaranteeing her a path to any school she wished to attend. Hope's eyes widened in disbelief, her hands trembling as she traced her name on the box. Her mother wept quietly, overwhelmed by gratitude. Mr. Carter knelt beside Hope, his voice gentle. "You fixed my car, Hope, but you also fixed something in me. I'll visit often, if you'll have me. I want to see all the things you'll build." In that moment, the room was filled with something money could never buy: hope, possibility, and the unbreakable bond of kindness shared. The weeks that followed brought a gentle transformation to Hope's world. Her mother, no longer weighed down by endless shifts and mounting bills, found time to laugh and rest. The house, once filled with quiet worry, now echoed with music and the clatter of shared meals. Hope, with her new toolbox always at her side, walked to school each morning with a spring in her step, her mind alive with dreams of engines and blueprints. Mr. Carter became a regular presence in their lives. He visited on weekends, sometimes bringing pastries, sometimes just a listening ear. He and Hope would tinker together in the yard, their hands greasy and faces smudged, trading stories and laughter as they worked on old bicycles and neighbors' lawnmowers. The bond between them grew, built not on charity, but on genuine friendship and respect. One golden afternoon, Hope knelt beside a battered pickup, her new tools gleaming in the sunlight. She tightened a bolt, her brow furrowed in concentration, the oversized ring still shining on her finger. Mr. Carter watched from the porch, pride warming his chest. He realized that the day his Mustang broke down had been a gift, a chance to rediscover what truly mattered. As Hope finished her repair, she looked up and grinned, her eyes full of promise. Mr. Carter smiled back, knowing that sometimes the smallest hands can spark the greatest change, and that a single act of kindness can rewrite the story of a lifetime.